What is up, guys? It is our last day here in the beautiful... Should I even say it? Should I say where we are? I think I've said it enough this week. The Poconos. It's our last day. I'm not going to do the accent today. It's going to stay. It's going to stay here. But we have 2 more shoes in the magic bag that I did not get to this week. And we have the 860 V14, which I did get to this week. I ran the 21-mile long run in it yesterday. And a lot of people have been asking me to either do the Vongo V6 or compare it to the 860 V14. So I thought this would be a nice send-off, a nice way to close out our trip up here to the Poconos, and do a little bit of a comparison to a shoe that I have been loving. So the 860 is one of New Balance's stability shoes in the Fresh Foam lineup, and I'm not actually sure what the difference is between this and the Vongo, because I thought 860 was the stability version of the 880 and the Vongo is the stability version of the 1080. However, I went on Running Warehouse and it turns out the 860 is actually higher stack than the Vongo by a few millimeters. So I have literally no understanding, no idea what the difference is between these. So we're going to do a first run in the Vongo V6 and find out. Let's get into it. Magic bag. Magic bag, na 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 na, magic bag. So you know what I did, guys? I took all the shoes that I wanted to bring, where I had 3 shoes. You can see that's a pair that we are not going to do today. And with my eyes closed, I might need to do the closed eyes thing again. Oh man, okay, hold on. All right, rustling through the bag here without looking. With my eyes closed, I took 3 different pairs of shoes out of the boxes, wrapped them up, and put them into these little Harris Teeter bags or Target bags or whatever we have. Now I'm going to put this other last pair back. We have 1 more pair in the magic bag that I did not get to. We're going to do a first run in soon. I'll give you a little hint. It is one of the last shoes in its category that I have not tried. One of the last shoes. Boom. Here we go. Look at this. I did not want to look at these shoes because, I love to give you my live insights, live reaction. This is the Vongo V6. I opened up the box. I think I got it from Zappos for $110 or something. I got some deal, and man, I told you guys. You can take the slugs out of Mint Hill, but you can't take the Mint Hill out of those slugs. You can take the shoe market out of Mint Hill, but you can't take the slugs out of the shoe market, baby. Let's go. That might need to be our little logo, a slug, because we're just out here putting work on the steps like these slugs, no matter where we are. But yeah, I got this deal, Zappos, $110. I do not know when the Vongo V7 is coming out, so if you do know, then let me know. But as I was saying, I thought this was some stability version of the 1080. It turns out the 860 is higher stack, so I'm thinking maybe the 860 is the new direction they're taking this line. Are they going to have both of them? I do not know. Let's open this up to find out. Maybe they're going to ride super differently. I really have no idea here. Wow, I really did a number. So I have not looked at this yet. Oh, look, I can see a little peak of blue. That looks like a New Balance outsole. Hold on. Technical difficulties here. I'm just gonna rip. Sorry guys, I'm just gonna grip and rip. Alright, I see some black. Alright. Boom! Alright. That is clean. That is super clean, man. Wow. Wow, look at that. That is a clean shoe. I also have to say, it feels a little bit like a heavy shoe too. Let's take the little insert out so I can really tell. So yeah, holding this in my hands, it definitely feels like a stability version of the 1080. So one thing that I do know is we cannot trust these brands when it comes to the names of the foams. So even though this says Fresh Foam and that says Fresh Foam, as we know, there's a different Fresh Foam in the 880 and 1080. There's a different Fresh Foam in the 860 and 1080. Every Fresh Foam is different. So hopefully this is like the 1080 Fresh Foam, but with the stability plate. That would be nice. Is this just going to be a 1080 with a little plastic plate? That would be super cool. So main differences between the 860 and the 1080 here. Let's take a look. uppers. Yes, this is the exact same upper as the 1080. I don't have the upper with me here, but I'm telling you, it looks identical. It has that same soft knit material. The 860 does not. The 860 is a little bit, I don't know, stiffer, more basic. The Vongo is also a little bit more expensive. 860 comes in at $140. Vongo, I believe, is $160 or $165, which is the same thing as the 1080. Now, upper around the back here, same exact little padding as the 1080. The 1080 has this little soft pillow around the Achilles. Look at that. The Vongo has it. 860 has more of this structured heel counter in the back. So around the bottom here, again, even the contouring of the foam on the Vongo on the right side. By the way, what is a Vongo? I know what a bongo is. That's a musical instrument. I know what the Congo is. That's a country which the CIA did some shenanigans in back in the day. Did you guys know that? Just sending random people to random countries to try to assassinate their heads of state. That's what the United States does sometimes. I love the United States, though, but it's still shenanigans, man. All right. Let's look at this. Yeah, this is the vibe of the Vongo is just a little bit nicer. It looks like the 1080. The fresh, I cannot tell. We're going to have to do a little bit of a fit and feel test here. I cannot tell if the foam in my hands, let's see, is any softer in the Vongo. I do have to say it looks a little bit more like the foam in the 1080. Yeah, I was asking, what is the Vongo? If anybody knows what the Vongo is, please let me know. Even the laces, though, a little bit softer on the Vongo than the 860. So 860, when I ran this yesterday, I told you guys after that long run, this is my number one workhorse style daily trainer right now. It feels like that old school planted, grippy, tons of rubber on the bottom. Let's compare that to the Vongo. Yeah, a little bit more rubber coverage on the bottom of the Vongo. This guy just feels like an absolute tank, but it's still fun. Come down here real quick. It has that nice rolling rocker to it up here in the front. Can you see? I have this at a kind of a weird angle. Yeah, that's a better angle. Boom. It has that rolling rocker up to it in the front right here. It just tips you right along. And the foam is not super soft. It is a little bit soft, but it has the density to it where it feels like it can take a pounding. And you can see it's starting to get some nice creases through it. But even after a 21-mile long run yesterday, I didn't feel like it was bottoming out. I didn't feel like it was tired. This is the type of shoe that is a one shoe to rule them all. It's a do-it-all type of shoe. You could do walking, you could do slower running, you could do faster running. Yesterday I did a 21-mile long run with the last 10 miles I was doing on and off, or roughly marathon pace, so 6:20 pace. And it handled that great on a soft surface as well. So a very versatile shoe. I'm wondering if our friend here, the Vongo, is this going to be a little bit less versatile? Is this going to be more of a max cushion cruiser with that stability plate? So one of the issues with the 1080 I had actually was not necessarily instability. Actually, yes, instability when walking. I felt that the heel gets a little bit squishy. But for longer miles, because it's non-plated and the fresh foam in the 1080 is super soft, I felt that it could get just a touch squirrely, a touch marshmallowy. I'm wondering if the stability plate will fix that and firm it up. So in the, let's see, 860 here, you have the stability plate, this red piece. It's a plastic plate, and they're calling it the stability plate. I'm wondering if it's just the same type of tech that we have in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3 and Speed 4. I would love to see the shoe cut in half. If you know any of those sickos like me who cut the shoes in half, though, let me know if you've seen the 860 cut in half, or even the Vongo. But I'd love to see the 860 because this is my current favorite right now. But look at this red piece. So it starts on the outside and then wraps toward the inside, versus on the Vongo, you have the plate all throughout here. And like the 860, I do think this is also a dual density foam. Look at this. So on top of the plate, a little bit of a softer foam. Bottom, very dense and firm. It almost feels like So to my hands, and look at this. Pushing in the bottom here, you can see now I'm pushing in the left side of the top. But watch me push in the bottom of the 860. So 860 push test with the bottom denser foam, Vongo push test. You can see the Vongo is a little bit firmer, and it's not like I have a ton of miles on the 860 here. I probably have, I don't know, between 30 and 40 maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but I have a few runs in this 21-mile long run, but it's not like I have 100 miles where it's super broken in. And I believe it was this softness throughout the life. So that's one thing with the Vongo that I'm wondering, do they have a place for both of these in their lineup? Is the 860 just replacing the Vongo, or is the Vongo more that max cushion cruiser? So with that, guys, let us get the Vongo on our feet to find out. One thing I did want to show you before we do that, though, is visually you can see. Take a look at this. Hold on. With the stacks here, they really did make this 860 a tall shoe, and it's also half a size smaller. But in the back here, you can really see they bumped up the foam. And the 860 almost rides like a max cushion shoe. But I don't know. I don't even know. These brands have too many shoes. That's what I was saying yesterday. These brands, this is what I was going off on in the 860 long run video. They have so many shoes. Why don't they just make one shoe in their lineup? The Noah Lyles shoe. The Sha'Carri Richardson shoe. Sydney McLaughlin needs to have a daily trainer. It wouldn't be the Vongo. It would be something sicker. But I would buy the New Balance Sydney V1. They do it for basketball players. Why don't you do it for runners? You already have 15 daily trainers that have 2% difference between them. Just make one with Sydney McLaughlin's name on it. Where's the Sydney signature shoe? I need that shoe. They're just leaving money on the table, man. It's disrespectful. All right, hold on. Manual weigh-in here. Got to do a little manual weigh-in. 860, definitely lighter. I'll flash the specs up on the screen. At least in these two pairs, 860 definitely lighter. It also it feels less bottom heavy, which I think might be, it just feels like the weight is distributed a little bit better. Vongo feels really bottom heavy with this denser layer of foam on the bottom here versus the 860 because it has a more built up upper. And I think they've lightened up these foams a little bit. Feels more cohesive. Vongo's a little bit bottom heavy. I'm interested to see how that's going to ride. But let's get this on foot, do a little fit and feel comparison to the 860. All right, lacing up the Vongo here. Where's the other one? It's still inside. And here's the thing about stability shoes. They're not the sexiest. They're not the most exciting. This one is pretty good looking, though, I have to say. I actually really like this colorway and general design. I like the way the 1080 looks a lot. And they just basically made this look like the 1080, which is great. But the thing about stability shoes is that it's not the most exciting category. It's not gonna get people as amped as the latest and greatest racing shoes, and I know that firsthand because I've been running a lot of stability shoes. And does it get the same engagement as racing shoes or as the carbon plated trainers? No, they don't. But when we're thinking about how the technology can help our running, me personally in my training right now, I am loving using a stability shoe every once in a while or a few times a week, maybe even once every other week, whenever I'm feeling a little bit beat up, whenever I'm feeling like I could use a little bit more support. Why not get what the technology has out there? Because traditionally, stability shoes would have been so much heavier, so much bulkier, so much more restrictive than neutral shoes. But now, slipping my foot in this Vongo here, it feels nearly identical to the 1080. Maybe there's a little bit of extra support in the back here. I can't even tell, but just slipping my foot into it, not thinking about the softness of the foam, but the upper and the general way that it fits does not feel that much different than the 1080. So why not take advantage of that on a recovery day, on a day when we're not worried about hitting our paces, even on a 21-mile long run like I did yesterday with our friend the 860? Why not go for something that's going to be a little bit more supportive, easier to run in? Maybe take a little bit of that burden off our body. Now, it doesn't have the stability shoes for the most part, other than Tempest, don't have this super bouncy foam. But what they do have is wider platforms, more comfortable uppers. And a lot of them have ride experiences in midsole foams, midsole setups that are just as good, if not better, than some of the daily trainers neutral daily trainers out there. For example, 860 right here is one of the best midsole setups I've tried this year, neutral or stability. Tempest is a really great midsole setup. Again, neutral or stability. So that's a little soapbox pontification. I don't know why I said it like that. Pontification on the 860 and the Vongo and stability shoes. We now have these both on my feet. Let's do a little bit of a walk test in these guys. All right, so man, I guess the Vongo feels softer. So I don't like saying words like premium, but the Vongo does feel a little bit nicer. It feels like the insole is softer, and that's not necessarily the material, the foam of the insole, just literally the top, like the fabric, the actual fabric. Yeah, I don't know if that's the case, but the fabric, something about the having my foot inside of the Vongo feels a little bit nicer. Yeah, the fabric seems like maybe it's a little bit more satiny versus the 860 one is a little bit rougher. And then same thing with the top of the upper and the tongue, more padding on the Vongo. So that's the thing with slipping my foot into the Vongo. Now it is a half a size bigger, but a little walk test here, man. I cannot. All right, we're going to have to do a legit walk test. All right, so here's where those differences in drop are coming into play. The Vongo has a 5 or 6 millimeter drop. 860 has an 8 millimeter drop. A little bit of a flatter platform when walking, and the roll is more, it goes more throughout versus, let's check these out here. So the roll, the Vongo, nice gentle roll. It starts more at the midfoot, similar to the SC Elite V4. So if you look at where I'm going to put my thumb, boom, that's where the rocker. Oh, you saw that save? This colorway is fire. It's like the LA Chargers, or LA Rams. But if you see where my thumb is, that's where that nice gentle roll starts. 860 rocker on this guy starts all the way up here, almost at the forefoot. And you can see just as I have this here, let's actually do a little head to head. You might be able to see the more aggressive, slightly more aggressive stance of the 860. Yeah, take a look at that. So the Vongo is very flat. That's the lower drop working. 860, you can see it slants you up, and a lot of these 8 or 10 millimeter drop shoes, they have this point right here, right under where the ball of your foot would be. That feels like it's the center of gravity. The higher drop just slants you down. But then on this shoe, luckily we do have that nice rolling rocker in the front. So I think that is going to give the Vongo a little bit more of a relaxed character out there, and it feels a little bit more relaxed right now. And standing on these, I do feel higher up in the Vongo, regardless of what the specs say. So it feels a little bit more like a max cushion shoe versus the 860 has more of that workhorse vibe. So I can verify there are some differences. I was not sure what the differences of these shoes would be. Let's do a little jog test. Man, we haven't done a jog test in a while. All right, guys, this jog test is brought to us by our friends over at Vuori. These are actually some random Vuori joggers that I got at a running store a few years ago before they sponsored the channel. But they're fire. I think they're the Sunday performance joggers. But this summer, I've been rocking with the Core Short. I've been telling you guys it's a cozy boy summer. Cozy. We have to stay cozy out here, so any of the Vuori stuff is great. I have 20% off through my link. I'll put it below, vuori.com/hobbyjogger. So jog test here. Boom. New Balance 860 V14 versus our friend, the New Balance Vongo V6. Let's do it. What do you guys think about this sweatshirt, by the way? So there's this shop, Stitchcraft, and Jim Thorpe. They had this sweatshirt that said Jim Thorpe that Charlie got, same exact as this. And I said, can you make one that says Carbon County? Because they're based literally in Carbon County. And so she made me a custom one. I think we're going to do some extensions to this. I really got to get on the merch game. Just stay tuned. But I love this. Look at that. Boom. Carbon County, baby. We got to get one of these with the hobby jogger aesthetic and the swag. But I love it. But okay, 860. Lighter, snappier, more of a roll to it. Overall, just feels, I don't like saying stuff like snappier, but look, it feels like a better shoe on foot by miles. Even just for that little quick jog test here, this felt a little heavy, a little dense, just not that bouncy, not that alive. It felt like as my foot was hitting the ground, it wasn't popping back up. And I know this was a 2-minute jog test, but there were huge differences between these. This felt way easier to run in, not necessarily restrictive, not like a stability shoe. This, when my foot was hitting the ground, the Vongo, felt like it was kind of just staying there and not popping back up. So we're going to have to do a little bit of an actual run in the Vongo here. Plan for this run is going to be, 4 miles. This is our last morning. It's 6:47 right now. I'm making good time, but I was joking with Charlie that I was going to wake up at 4:30 a.m. and she didn't think it was funny. She seemed to think it was serious, so I think she wanted me to wake up early. I do have the stroller packed on the car. I'll show you there in a second, but just 4 quick miles. It's the last morning. We've got a pack. Nice little recovery run. I did 21 yesterday in the 860, so I have a really good reference point. We'll just get some easy miles in this guy, and I'll tell you whether or not this is actually as heavy. And this, man, okay, look at this. It feels heavy, dense, and clunky. This might be, especially in this white colorway, this might be relegated to a walking shoe, even though it is a fire colorway. I don't know if this is going to get destroyed walking, but this might just become the school drop-off shoe or something if it truly does run as uninspiringly as the 860 versus the 860, because this is a great shoe. This one I'm not so sure. So it might just be the case that the 860 is the one to get. But let's get the other Vongo on our foot, and then we can go bang some miles. Carbon County, baby. Boom. Who else do you know with the custom Carbon County? Man. Boom. By the way, that's the stroller on top. We'll see how it does. On the way down here, it was making so much noise. The way up here that we had to put it back in the car. We have the ratchet straps and everything. Like, my sister has the official, that is Supple certified right there. The Thule Bucks. This is not, but that's like a rack and a half right there. You know what I mean? That's $1,500. So this, boom, ratchet straps, $10. So we'll see. If it's not making a lot of noise, it will stay. If it is making a lot of noise, it's going to have to come to the middle, and then Mace is going to have to walk over it every time. It's a mess, man. Road trips with a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 5-month-old. Man, put some respect on our patience, bro. Put some respect on my noise level toleration. The one thing I do want to say, though, before we start getting some miles in here is the Vongo is very comfortable. It is very comfortable. If I just slip both of these on in a specialty running store, I'm not sure any store even carries both of these, quite honestly. I don't know why that is. They just carry Brooks everything. But if I slipped either of these guys on in a specialty running store and we're just looking for a comfortable walking shoe, I might go for the Vongo because of that step and feel. And I've told you this before. There's 3 elements to that step and feel. The tongue and upper, the midsole, and the insole. And for 2 out of 3 of them, the Vongo feels better. The midsole is the one area where I think the 1080 actually, or the 860, sorry. There's too many numbers. I'm glad they called the Fresh Foam or the Vongo because we don't need any more numbers. So yeah, very comfortable, just like the 1080. Thinking about the upper, the tongue, the padding. Step and feel is great of this guy, but how does it run? That is the number one question we answer on this channel. How does it run? Let's go find out. All right, initial early overreaction to running on the Vongo. It is smooth. I like the geometry. Pretty much the same as the 1080. But the midsole feels flat, dense, and uninspiring. Woo! Yo, what up, buddy? Pull up with the deer. Yeah, I don't think this one is gonna be a winner for me. Especially given how good the 860 is. This one is, so far, not doing it for me, but let's warm up into this run, see if some more time can open it up. I'm not too optimistic, but hit you with an update in a bit. All right. And of course, I forgot to start my watch. So we're gonna get half a mile extra or whatever it is. All right, we've been running for 5 minutes. Part of me wants to just turn around and end this run because this shoe is not good. But I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna get our miles in. A Vongo V6. If you like the 880, you will love the Vongo. That's the vibe of this shoe, man. This foam has no bounce. As soon as my foot hits the ground, it feels like it's stuck in mud. Yeah, this is kind of a tough one, but as I'm picking it up here, actually, getting a little bit more. I don't know. Yeah, this foam just feels like it's going into that React X 880 Ride 17 Power Run Plus foam category, where you only get any benefit when you're stomping your feet down. All right, we're closing in on the end of the first mile here, and I was a little harsh first mile, but that's why we call it initial overreaction, early overreaction. We have to overreact to what we're getting, and it was not good out of the gate. Still not great, but as I'm putting a little bit more force down into the shoe, I'm getting a little bit more back. And the fresh foam in here most certainly is leaning more 880 than 1080. This ride experience is not like the 1080 whatsoever, other than the drop and that smooth geometry. But it's also not quite like the 860. It's denser and it is bottom heavy, like I said up there. So the thing about this is, man, it's making me run faster than I want to right now, because if I do run at a, let's see, if I run at an 8 flat pace, it's feeling pretty flat. But if I pick it up to a 740, it feels a little bit livelier. All right, that was mile 1, 8:18. A little sluggish out of the gates. We're gonna go up Skytop Road one last time. One last mountain ascent here in the Poconos. And yeah, I think this foam is just tuned a little bit firmer and denser than I need it to be. So maybe this will be a nice stability option for bigger runners. Man, every time I decide to do this hill, I'm humbled and reminded what hills are all about. Elevation. The Volvo XC90, that's the official car of this HOA. I must have seen about 5 or 6 of them at this point. Also, yeah, this was a whole big group that was down at the lake yesterday. Bunch of college kids getting up to shenanigans. So we're going downhill. We summited. We made it to the top. Now we're going down. Whenever I'm going downhill and I start to feel like a shoe is better than I thought, was I wrong? Is it actually super bouncy? That tells me it's not a great foam. Because if you need to be running downhill to feel that force or to feel that bounce with a lot of extra force, then it doesn't have a lot of natural bounce to it. So if you're a bigger runner, in this case, likely over 180, over 200 pounds, you might feel some more bounce from the shoe at slower paces. But for me, the firmer, denser layer here really feels like a progress stopper. The initial landing is soft enough, but that bottom layer is just a touch too dense. So we are not going to do the gravel path today. That would just be absurd, asinine, absolutely bonkers. In a white shoe? No. So I'm just gonna turn around. This is why I didn't do my long run here. Well, first of all, it is disgustingly hilly. Second of all, I would have just been turning around every 2 seconds. You can only really get half a mile straight here. Without going down the gravel path. Whew, these hills. Look at this, I discovered a new part of the neighborhood. Plateau Road. There's a water tower. Boom. I call it plateau, but it's at the top of another gigantic hill. So here's the thing about the stability shoes. This one is fine. It's not the most exciting, it's not the best, it's probably not the worst, but for the most part, for example, if we're thinking about cars, everyone wants, if you're into trucks, the Bronco Raptor, the Wrangler 392, the Ram TRX, but you're probably gonna get just as much performance for what you need out of something like a Toyota Tacoma TRD off-road trim, not even the TRD Pro. That's the goal of my channel, to find the best shoe for our use cases, and a shoe like the 860 for me at $140 does everything that a shoe like the Mizuno Neo Vista can do at a lower price point with more versatility. So that's why I'm testing a lot of these stability shoes and less exciting shoes right now. Now this one, this whole downhill situation, making me realize this might be a really nice option for bigger runners. And as I'm getting more time on feet, feels like it's opening up a tiny bit more. I was worried that this was going to go into the Pegasus Ride 880 camp. I don't think that's the case. Turn around. All right, we finished. Boom. 4 miles, average 8:20 pace, 33 minutes, and 1,756 feet of elevation gain. No, I'm just kidding. How many did we actually... Running performance low. How many feet of elevation gain do we actually get? 341 feet in 4 miles. That is absurd. So the deck was stacked against us. The odds were against us. There was not a high chance that we were going to have a great first impression. It's gray. It's my last day of vacation. I'm tired. I ran 21 miles yesterday. What else? And all the hills. So that's why I give you guys insight into the testing, because you can see all of the other variables that are going into the review and my experience with the shoe. Now, all that being said, I still feel that I have a clear brain. Unlike our friend Joey B. Man, that's a tough situation for the good old United States of America, man. I don't know what they're even going to do about that one. But I am still lucid, clear-minded. I can remember what other shoes felt like. I remember what the 860s felt like that I ran yesterday. I can remember what the 300 miles felt like in the New Balance 1080 V13. Many of those runs I did when I was also tired after long runs, not feeling my best. Some of them in the rain. So I can use that database that I've built up, that library, and that's what I refer to my shoe collection as, the library, because each of these shoes has its own story. I have different memories with each of these shoes, but they've also added to my knowledge as the record keeper, is what Charlie calls me. And sometimes I've said, hey, should I still post this 100-mile review even if the verdict is already out on the shoe, like the Triumph 22? And she says, yes, you're the record keeper. Post the review because you've logged the miles and it should be out there for posterity. Now, that sounds a little bit pretentious. What I'm trying to say is the Vongo, this guy was not great. And I've run in a lot of shoes. So even though I only ran 4 miles, even though my legs are a little bit tired, I can still say pretty confidently that this will probably never be as good for me as the 860 and 1080. But let's do this final breakdown here. You got a big trunk, let me search it. I know if my guy Jose is watching this, he's gonna say, coming through with the 90s heat again. I know I'm a 90s baby. I was born in the 90s, but I still know those throwbacks. You got a big, let me search it. All right, guys, so 4 whiny, complainy, rainy, gray, hilly miles in the New Balance Vongo here. And we have still not answered what a Vongo is, but I can tell you what the differences are between this shoe and all of the other fresh foam shoes. So 880, that still with certainty ranks at the absolute bottom of any fresh foam shoe list. Also, probably worst shoe of 2024. 880 is still in the absolute dumpster. This guy, much better than the 880. The top layer of foam is a lot softer than the 880. It's a lot more forgiving. It's not bad to run in. It's not painful. I don't feel like my feet are smashing against the ground. It's just not giving me as much of that beautifully soft experience as the 1080. And that was my first thought of the shoe when I saw it online, looking at the design of the shoe, seeing the Fresh Foam X. And we don't need to get into the whole Elizabeth Warren conversation about how these brands should be sued for using the same name of the foam across shoes with different foam technologies. It's disgusting to me. I seriously am going to do a class action once we got a little bit more shekels in the war chest here. Hobby Jogger v New Balance. We're going to take them. We're going to take them to trial. I'm just kidding. I love you, New Balance. I'm not going to sue you. But this is not as soft as the 1080. It's also not as peppy as the 860. I was hoping the best version of the shoe and what the Vongo V7 could do. Take that soft foam of the 1080, add in the plate, and give it that pep that the 860 has, and give it a little bit more of a rocker. This retains the same flat, low drop geometry as the 1080, so it could be an option if you really like the low drop and you're a bigger runner who can put more force down into this foam. For me, at this recovery pace today, which is why I personally, as a neutral runner, would go for a stability shoe. As I was saying, we use the technology for the types of runs that we're doing. I would go for this type of a shoe for a recovery run when I feel like I need more support, when my legs are beat up after a 21-mile long run, and I know I'm going to be going up and down the hills. I'm not going to go for a race shoe the day after a 21-mile long run. So for runners who can put more power down into the shoe, you might get a little bit more out of it than I could. And maybe if I were running at a 7:30 or 7 flat pace, I could get a little bit more out of the shoe. But why would I do that? Why would I buy a heavy stability shoe to run tempo runs or to run workouts unless I were nursing an injury or something? So this could be a shoe that I pull for maybe if my legs are feeling a little bit beat up, but I still think for a lot of people the 860 is going to be a much better choice. The foam is bouncier. It has a little bit more snap. The one thing that this does have to it that the 860 does not is a very soft padded tongue and comfortable upper. So the upper comfort goes to this. But when I'm out there, for example, yesterday doing that 21-mile long run in the 860, I thought about the upper this many times. Zero. If you're listening to this like a podcast, as you should be, because we're the best podcast that's not a podcast. But I thought about the upper on the 860 0 times. It completely disappeared on my foot. So I don't really think about uppers all that often when I'm running, and a good shoe will completely melt away, which is what the 860 did for me yesterday. So far, I prefer the 860. The good qualities of this, though, are it is decently stable. The midsole is not bad, it's just not exciting, and it's not as soft as the 1080, so it's not what you'd expect seeing it online. The fit and feel is fine. The toe box is a little bit narrower, I think, than the 860, which is a little bit odd. And then out in the back, of course, we have the structured heel piece, but the stability and the security of the back feels a little bit worse even than some neutral shoes. So again, thinking about the value proposition of the shoe or why I would get a shoe like this versus something else, I'm not quite sure why I would go for the denser, firmer, heavier, more structured, more stiffer stability shoe when there's neutral shoes like the Nova Blast 4 that have a lot better stability, when there's workout shoes like the Hoka Skyward X or fun shoes like the Hoka Skyward X that have a lot more stability than this. So the stability is just average, which is a little bit puzzling for me as well. It seems that this is maybe a lost product in the New Balance lineup right now, and I'm guessing they took some of the learnings of this and applied it onto the 860 V14, because this has been out in the market for a while. 860 just came out a few months ago, and that shoe is fantastic. So I'm hoping with the Vongo V7 they can take some more learnings from what worked on the 860 and pop that into this. 860 does have more of that traditional workhorse character to it. Let me grab it. Yeah, the 860 here has way more of that workhorse character to it, especially with all the rubber that we get on the bottom, and it feels a little bit more connected. I also think that 8mm drop gives it more of that workhorse vibe versus this guy here. It does have that max cushion floaty boaty feeling. Let's see how wide they are. Pretty similar. This just feels a little bit more disconnected because I think you have a little bit more stack. Let's see. Yeah, you get a little bit more stack up in the forefoot. The key though is you have that firmer layer of foam all the way up to the top here, that's really where the shoe is getting crushed. So the forefoot stability, maybe that's going to be a little bit better, but it's getting crushed because you have both in the inside and the outside. Look at that, the really thick layer of the firmer foam all the way through to the front versus boom. In the 860, you have a lot more of the soft top layer of foam, and you have that soft layer all the way through the front. You have a little bit of the firmer, dense layer on the bottom, but the firmer, dense layer on the 860, in air quotes, it might be even softer. Yeah, the bottom layer of the 860, take a look at this. Boom, bottom layer of the 860 might be softer or just as soft as the top layer of the Vongo. So my friend Lance the other day said, I'm not sure, because he tried the Hyperion Max 2. He said it was on a little bit on the firmer side. He said, I'm not sure if you're gonna like it because I know you love soft shoes. That's not always the case. I like the Nova Blast 4. I love the Saucony Endorphin Shift 3, 350 miles on the shoe. That shoe. I liked the Adidas Ice Hero SL1. Again, 300 miles on that shoe. So I don't always only love soft shoes. Even the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris, that felt a little bit firmer to me. Saucony Endorphin Elite felt a little bit firmer to me. And then both of those shoes grew on me with faster pace. So I don't have anything against the firmer shoes, but for relaxed miles, I do like a little bit of that soft cushion when I'm not trying to go out there and slam the pace. So this guy, 100% on the firmer side. If you are lighter on your feet or do not consider yourself a bigger runner and want a New Balance stability shoe, I would go for the 860. This is an all-around banger, all-around great shoe. This is a little bit more, what I can say right now, definitely more of a niche shoe. Does not have the same mass appeal. If you want the lower drop, are a bigger runner, can put more power down to the shoe, want that comfortable upper, then this might be nice for you. But overall, 860 is a little bit more of a crowd pleaser with the nice rocker geometry here, the 8mm drop, which puts you up a tiny bit more on your toes, and this little back layer. And I do have to say, I know people always classify me as a heel striker. I did a run in this pretty much exclusively forefoot striking just to try it, and the foam still felt great up here because you're getting such a thick layer. So I would go for the 860 out of these two. I know this wasn't a comparison video. Maybe it is a comparison video. I don't know. But that is my first impression of the Vongo. I'll have to take this out for a few more runs before we can fully get our answers on this shoe, but not a crowd pleaser is what I can say today. Not a crowd pleaser, definitely more of a niche shoe. Not gonna work as well for as many people as something like the 860 here. If you want super soft, go 1080. And if you only need a little bit of stability and want cushioned, go for the Nova Blast 4. So it is starting to absolutely come down here right in time. We gotta pack up. We can pack up in the rain, start driving. I'll see you guys tomorrow.